Hi, I've already done a tutorial on how to use the email helper in your components, and in that tutorial I actually do touch upon the storing of messages or emails for that matter once it's been sent. Now I would like to just look at that again for those of you that may just be wanting to know that. So obviously at this stage you should know that the email helper class is basically added to the helper folder of your component's backend. So, and it's usually called your component's name and then email. That's the email helper class. So to use it in the custom script, you could use the three brackets. Is that okay? And then component like that, and then just email um, and send. And that is how you would basically construct your your script. I showed that as well in the tutorial where we go into more depth of how to use the email helper. But at the very bottom of this class, in the send method, there is a little snippet, quite insignificant as it might seem. It actually gives you a very great ability, because the result of the email that was sent is placed in sent email. This result is passed to the method as well. So first it looks in your helper class, which is usually your component name, helper, that's the helper class, and whether this method exists in that class. And this method will not exist unless you write it. So the area where you would have to write this method is in the component. There is an area called admin helper. Let's look at that. So we open a component, we go to libraries and helpers, we scroll down, and we see there is email helper, and then underneath it helper admin class. And it's in this area that you need to add that method. Now I realized I've chosen the wrong component, since this component actually does not use that storage concept, but there's another one that does. Let's open that one instead then. So again, we are in helper admin class, and we have a function called store message, and this is in the components, where you edit your component. So this store message has what we call a signature, values that it is passing to the method. And in the email helper class, you'd see that it also has a signature, but wherever it gives this equals with a value, that means that that's the default value. So if you do not add a value for this position, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth position, then it will default to 0. If you do not add this, it will default to null. And so from there all the way to the end, all of those values have basically the null value. So in reality, you only need to add, these values, the first 4. But those values are all used in this method. So if you want to understand exactly how these values should look inside of the method, read through the method, and you'll see. So making a long story short, we end up here at this little script, and basically it asks whether you created the method or not. If you didn't, it simply skips it and returns the value of sent mail. If it sees that you have created it, it will pass these variables that correspond to the signature, and then inside of that method that is in your helper class, that is now this method, you need to do the necessary checks and balances and discovering, for example, since you got the email address, you can search with the get var in the user class. It must equal email, the recipient equals email, and then returns to us the ID. So that is basically how the get var works. And then when we have the user ID, we can obviously make sure it's a number, and we set it to our message as user, and we set it as the email, and now we can store the message in whatever table or do whatever we want to do beyond the normal. So even if you want to do other things except storing the message, this is the method inside of which you can do it. So store message is the method inside which you can do some more custom scripting on top of your email integration. Okay, so that's just quickly giving a little bit more depth on that specific aspect of using the email class in your component. Thank you for watching.